Ladies and gentlemen, on today's edition of your program Decryptage, we have on board Dahlia Khalifa, who is the Regional Director of the Anglophone West and Central Africa at the International Finance Corporation. Her expertise lies in finance, investment and private sector development in emerging countries. Her presence at the first edition of the IFC Day, the Private Sector Day in Congo, was very enriching in tapping ideas for development of the Congolese private sector and better cohabitation with finance cooperation strategies to facilitate better cohabitation between the private sector and the government. Mrs. Dahlia, welcome on Africa 24 English. Congo hosted its very first edition of the IFC Day Private Sector Day, a leading strategy event which brought together key players from the public and private sectors on January 14, 2025 in Brazzaville. What are IFC's strategic priorities in private sector and development and economic resilience in Central Africa and West Africa?
Thank you very much. It's for the question. It's an opportunity for me to share a little bit about what IFC is doing in Central Africa and Anglophone West Africa, and to share that the priorities that we have are really priorities that have been set by governments across the region and where we find the greatest opportunities. This region, this sub-region, is very rich in so many natural resources, whether it's agricultural land or whether it's potential green energy resources, whether it's the youth who are filled with aspirations and entrepreneurial ideas, and whether it is how they can all of the resources within this region can connect with the rest of the world to create more economic opportunity for the people of Central Africa and Anglophone West Africa. So I'm very happy to be here, to be in Congo, Brazzaville this week, to have this discussion with a lot of the policymakers and people and leaders from the private sector in the country.
How is IFC addressing the finance and challenges faced by SMEs and entrepreneurs in Congo, and what lessons have been learned across Africa?
Access to finance is one of the critical elements of creating a vibrant economy. When you look at the large size of the SME sector in most countries of the world, they account for 80 to 90% of job creation. So clearly, if you want to increase jobs in any economy, and especially in Africa, you need to support SMEs. Oftentimes, SMEs are within what we call the formal sector or in the informal sector. So the more that you can bring in SMEs within the formal sector, the more you can provide greater access to finance. Of course, there's other means as well of providing greater means of access to finance, whether it is through fintech solutions and disruptive technologies, and be able to make sure that you reach the entrepreneurs, you reach the market segments, the underserved market segments where they are. Everybody has a mobile phone today, and a mobile phone is often the first means of accessing finance, finding your markets, finding your customer base, and finding resources. So the more we can move forward with technologies, the better we can help SMEs access finance. But that's just one aspect of what matters to a growing economy. Capacity building, reaching markets where they are, all of these elements are critical to growing access to finance and growing SMEs. One other element is that all businesses, all entrepreneurs, all companies operate within an environment. They operate within an environment of business enabling services, sometimes business inhibiting environments. So working with governments to remove barriers to private sector growth is also critical for SMEs to grow.
How is IFC contributing to improving Congo's business climate through public-private dialogue and legal reforms?
IFC has grown its business in Africa over the past 10 years a number-fold. Where we were 10 years ago is just a small percentage of where we are today, not only in terms of financing, but in terms of also capacity building and advisory services through which we engage with the private sector. We have committed a large number of staff. We're operating now with offices established in 40 countries in Africa. So clearly, IFC is here to stay, and it's a partner to all of the countries of Africa, to all of the business sector across Africa. We're not inhibited by what is the macroeconomic environment. In fact, it is the macroeconomic environment which makes us want to double our efforts to make sure that we can help economies bridge the challenges that they face from the macroeconomic sides. A growing private sector, job creation is the primary way that economies can bridge these challenges. And that's what IFC is all about.
How is the IFC prioritizing private sector development and economic resilience in its work in Central Africa and Anglophone West Africa, particularly as it relates to Congo's strategic objectives for economic diversification?
IFC is always working with the private sector through all of these challenges. As we were saying before, there are macroeconomic challenges, there are development challenges. And the private sector is one angle of the solution. Public sector and government plays an important role as well. And there are not enough resources for us to say that we can only focus on one aspect of who is operating in a country. Everyone needs to work together in order to achieve and bring all the resources that are needed across different sectors. In Congo in particular, one of the key strategies of the government is diversification. Diversification of the economy means looking at how you can support the real sectors, how you can support and grow the agriculture sector. That is really what we've seen as a strategy that's articulated by the government here, and the policies that are being put forward are in support of that. And that was probably one of the key takeaways from our time here in Brazzaville yesterday during the IFC Day, in which we had government officials and we had private sector in the room discussing how together they could be removing the barriers to private sector growth to enable greater diversification of the economy.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. We have come to the end of this program. Stay tuned for more information on Africa 24 English.